All right, guys, welcome back. My name is Sam and welcome to my channel. We're going to be making some easy meals this week because this is another very busy week for me with prom coming up. It's going to be kind of hectic. So we're going to start out this week with making some delicious bean and cheese burritos. Now this recipe is on my blog. It's for my my beef and bean burritos. So I'm just kind of tweaking that recipe just a little bit. So I've got my skillet here heating up over medium-low heat. I've got my oven preheating to 350 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of oil to my pan here. Probably about 2 tablespoons. And I'm going to cook up some onion. Okay, so we're not going to add the beef. I'm going to do just bean and cheese today. But if you want to stick to the recipe, I'll leave the link to my blog down below in the description box. So I'm just going to add that in there. Add a little bit of salt and pepper just to help sweat out those onions. We're going to cook these onions down for about 5 minutes or so, just until they get nice and tender. All right, so these onions are tender. We're going to go ahead and add some spices to this. You're going to add in 1/2 of a teaspoon of each chili powder, cumin, and oregano. And this is going to add a ton of flavor to these beans. These toast up for just a couple of seconds. Okay. And now I'm just going to add in some garlic. I'm just going to let this cook for about 30 seconds. Okay, I can smell that garlic. And instead of using water or milk to thin out my refried beans, I'm going to use a little bit of enchilada sauce. Probably about 1/2 of this can. We'll use the other 1/2 later when we assemble these. Now I've got 2 cans of refried beans. You can use any kind of brand that you like. I've got this CHICKPEA brand here. This is the vegan refried pinto beans. These are really good. So I'm just going to add these into this mixture. Okay, now that I've got that in there, I'm just going to mix this around and kind of break up these refried beans and get them all combined into the mixture. It's going to take me a few minutes, but it'll eventually get there. So I've got my heat turned down. I'm just going to get this all mixed up. Okay, so I've got this all mixed up. Just mixing in the last of that enchilada sauce. Going to add in a little bit more salt and pepper. Now be careful when you're adding salt to this because that enchilada sauce has salt in it, so just adjust to taste. Okay, so that is all nice and mixed up. I'm going to grab my cheese. Okay, so I've got 2 cups of cheddar cheese here. I'm just going to add 1 cup into my bean mixture. I'm going to save the rest for the topping. And I'm just going to mix this in together, and it's going to start to melt. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat off because we want to get these into the burrito shells and into the oven. Now the cheese doesn't have to be completely melted. It's going to melt in the oven. So like I said, I've got my I've got my heat off. We're going to go ahead and get these assembled. Okay, so I've got my little system here, and I've got my cheese right here. I've got a little dish that I've got sprayed with a little bit of avocado oil, my enchilada sauce, and my beans. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of this sauce down onto this tortilla shell, kind of spread it out a little bit. You can add as much or as little as you want. You can dunk the whole thing. That's really up to you. Okay. And now we're just going to add some of our cheese. Make sure you get it everywhere. You can add as much or as little of this bean mixture as you want. And then you're just going to roll these up. I like to tuck the ends, fold the sides over, kind of press it together, and then roll it up and add it to my little dish. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these, and then we'll get these in the oven until about 12 to 15 minutes, just until the cheese is nice and melted on top and the sauce is bubbly. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up. Okay, so I've got all of my burritos filled to the max with the bean and cheese mixture. I'm going to add the remaining of our enchilada sauce right on top. Which isn't much. And then I'm going to add the remaining cheese right on top. And then in the oven this goes for about 10 to 12 minutes, just until the cheese is bubbly and melted and delicious. So here are the burritos right out of the oven. I just chopped up some parsley and cilantro and sprinkled that right over the top of that as soon as they come out of the oven. And then I made my plate. I topped the burritos with some sour cream, some olives, tomatoes, lettuce, and then I made some cilantro lime rice to go on the side with that. And this, you guys, was so good. Alright guys, today I'm going to go the easy route and we're going to make some sandwiches and some chips. You can do fries, whatever kind of side you want to go with this. I'm going to be making my chickpea salad. It's kind of like tuna salad, but we're going to be using chickpeas instead. It's really delicious, and you can add in whatever your favorite additions are. So I've got some chickpeas here. They're just canned. I've just rinsed them, drained them, rinsed them really well. And we're just going to add these into a little mini food processor. Okay, set that down there. And I've got just a little bit of parsley. And I just leave the stems on, kind of the tender part of the stem. I'm just going to add that in there. And we're just going to blitz this up until it's crumbly. It should take about a minute. All right, so this is well mixed. Get this off the top here. And remove this from the inside. Okay. And I'm just going to add this into my bowl. As you can see here, it's kind of crumbly and dry looking, but we're going to add some mayo to this later. So in the bowl this goes. If you've never tried a chickpea salad, I would highly recommend you try it. It's so easy and delicious. All right, so I've got that in there. I'm going to go ahead and add in my additions. So I've got all of that here. I'm going to grab a spoon. For my relish, you can use dill relish or sweet relish. I'm using sweet, and I'm just going to add probably about a tablespoon and a half. You can add more or less. And I'm just using up what I've got in the refrigerator. So I've got some radishes here that I need to use up. And this is going to add such a nice crunch to this. And I've got some tomato. I diced this up the other day, and I want to use the rest of this up before it goes bad. So I'm just going to add this in here. And some celery. Now, normally I do not like celery by itself. It's the stringiness, it's the texture for me. But however, you can add it in stuff and it will kind of cut down that. I cut mine very, very fine because, like I said, it's a texture thing for me, not so much the flavor. And I've got some pickled onions here, just some regular pickled onions. Okay, I'm going to give this a little mix. So I've got some mayo here. Typically, I like to make my own mayo, but I keep this on hand. And I'm just going to add, I don't know, just a little bit at first because I can kind of judge and go from there on how much I need. So I'm just going to add that. A little bit of salt and pepper. Add a little bit because you can taste it when it's all mixed together, and then add some more salt and pepper if you need it. Now I'm just going to mix this up, and if I need more mayo, I'll add more mayo or salt or whatever I think it needs. Give this a little taste. Tad bit more salt and a little bit of pepper. Now you can add some red pepper flakes to this, spice it up a bit. It's really, really good. Or you can do hot sauce. But this is done. All I'm going to do now is pop a lid on this, pop this in the refrigerator, and kind of let it hang out, let those flavors meld together a little bit. And then I've got some bread here. I made some challah loaf. This is a challah loaf I made two, so I've got the other one sliced up in the freezer. I like to do that with, you know, like keep it in the freezer for like toast, avocado toast or toast and eggs or whatever in the morning. And then I always keep a loaf out just in case we need, like, make a sandwich or something. So I will use my knife here and cut some slices off, toast this up, or you can just leave it plain and make some sandwiches later. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a lid on this and let it hang out. And then I'll show you my plate when everything's done. Here is my plate. I love chickpea salad. It is a great substitute for tuna salad. If you are not a tuna salad fan or a chicken salad fan, this is another great option. It's very high in protein with the chickpeas, and you can add anything to it and it just turns out absolutely delicious. But I just served that with some chips on the side, but you can serve this with whatever you want. You can do pasta salad, french fries, tater tots, onion rings. The sky's the limit to what you want for a side, but this was so good. Hey y'all, it is super early in the morning and I'm making some coffee, and I realized that I no longer have any coffee creamer in the fridge, so I just figured I would bring you guys along and I'll show you how to make my coffee creamer. It's super easy. The basic recipe is on my blog. You can go there and check that out. But I'm going to show you how to do that today. And you can add any flavor to this, but we're going to go a little bit basic today. I'm going to make like a mint vanilla situation. It's going to be really good. So I've got a medium-sized pot here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on medium-low. And I've got a can of sweetened condensed milk. You can do sweetened condensed coconut milk if you want. I do that often if I can find it at the grocery store. It's so good. So we're just going to add all of this in there. I like to make my own coffee creamer because I can control the ingredients that go in it. I do, however, like to try new coffee creamers that come out at the grocery store. So I've got a can of evaporated milk going in. And I often switch this out for evaporated coconut milk as well. If you want a little bit more of a coconut flavor, that works really, really well. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a stir. And I'll get that all incorporated. Okay, now from here, you can sweeten this up however you want. If you want to leave it as is, that is fine. I do that quite often. But today, since I'm making more of a vanilla mint situation, I'm going to sweeten it up just slightly. So I've got 1/4 cup of sugar going in, and I'm just going to stir this together and let this start to melt. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt, and it's going to help balance out that sweetness. Probably just a pinch, maybe not even 1/4 teaspoon. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this do its thing and let the sugar melt down. It's going to take about 3 to 5 minutes depending. All right, now that this has come up to a slight simmer, I am going to go ahead and turn my heat off. And I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of vanilla. If you want it a little bit more vanilla-y, you can add in another tablespoon. And I'm going to give that a little stir, get that all nice and incorporated. It smells delicious. And I've got 2 sprigs of mint, and I'm just going to gently rub the leaves on my mint just to help release some of their aroma and flavor. And I am just going to pop that in there, and I'm going to let this steep. And I'm going to let it cool to room temperature, and then I'm going to remove the mint leaves, toss them because their job will be done. And then you'll want to let this cool completely before you put this in any container, so that way it doesn't melt your container. I always keep a container that I get from the grocery store. Like I have a Starbucks container that I just removed the label from and washed it up. And that's the one that I reuse. But any container or mason jar with a lid will work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and let this cool, and then we'll bottle it up. All right, you guys, here is the coffee creamer. It's cooled completely. And before I put this in the refrigerator, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. It's kind of like a tan color. I'm not sure if it comes off on camera or not. But I just keep it in this container here. This was a Starbucks coffee creamer that I tried out. And I like this coffee container here, or this coffee creamer container. I like the lid. I love this lid. So this is what I keep it in. I just rinse it out really well and reuse it. But this coffee creamer, it's not minty. It's got a subtle hint of mint kind of in the background. It's more vanilla flavored, but it's really, really good. If you want me to try to put more coffee creamer recipes up, let me know, and I will do that when I get done with this. I love making new coffee creamer recipes, but you can use the coffee creamer recipe that's on my blog and make any flavor that you want and kind of switch it up. It's a very basic recipe. You can add pumpkin and some pumpkin pie spice to it and make a pumpkin pie spice creamer. Just the sky's the limit with that recipe. So this is what this looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the refrigerator, and then I'm going to start on dinner. I am making this recipe right here from the Laura in the Kitchen at My Italian Table cookbook. This recipe I haven't tried yet, so this is a new to me recipe, but I am super excited to try it. Looks very easy and it's very simple. So Yep, I'm going to go ahead and get all of this prepped, and then I'll meet you back here and we will get dinner started. All right, we are starting on dinner. I've already showed you what I'm cooking for dinner. It's the sausage and potatoes recipe from the At My Kitchen Table cookbook from Laura in the kitchen. So I've got some water coming to a boil for my potatoes. I've got my skillet heated up, and I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of olive oil. And I've got some sausage here. Now, I'm going to say you can use any kind of sausage that you want. I'm using Cajun. It'll be fine. It's going to be delicious. And this is going into the pan. And I'm just going to cook these until they are completely cooked through. It should take about 12 to 15 minutes. I'm going to keep my heat on about medium low, and I'm just going to let these do this thing. When the water comes up to a boil, I'm going to add the potatoes, let them cook until they're just shy of tender, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I've gone ahead and sauteed up some red pepper flakes and some garlic. My air conditioner's on, so if you hear that, I'm sorry, but it is super, super hot in here. My potatoes are done. Well, not done completely, but they're done cooking in the water. And this garlic is smelling delicious. I'm just going to go ahead and add these potatoes in here. And kind of spread them out a bit. And I'm going to season the top side with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then I'm just going to let these cook until they're nice and golden brown. But first I'm going to kind of toss them in that oil. Okay, so let's give these a little toss. Kind of mix that salt and pepper up. Okay, so I'm just going to spread this around, and I'm going to leave them alone, and I'm going to let them cook on this side just for a couple of minutes, just until they get nice and golden brown. And then I'm going to toss them again and repeat this process until they are all completely cooked through and nice and golden brown. All right, you guys, these potatoes are nice and golden brown. They are cooked through and nice and tender. I'm going to go ahead and cut off my heat. I've already added a little bit of salt. And I've got some chopped parsley here. I'm going to go ahead and add all of that in here. And I'm going to give these potatoes one last toss in the pan. And I'm going to nestle these sausages in the pan here. And I'm just going to let the carryover heat from the skillet heat the sausages back through. I'm going to add that liquid from the sausages back into the pan. And this is done. I've got some vegetables heating up. When this is warmed through, I'll show you my plate. You guys, this sausage and potato dinner was so easy and absolutely delicious. Now I know why my grandmother always boiled her potatoes before she fried them, and I think I will always do this from now on. Typically, I just chop them up and fry them in oil and then call them good to go, but I think I'm going to be doing this from now on. It was so delicious, and I just paired that with some asparagus with butter, salt, pepper. Just kept it simple, but this was so, so good. All right, so today I have decided to make some pizza for dinner. And who doesn't like pizza for dinner? It's super easy. You can stop by your local Walmart or local grocery store and pick up some ready-made pizza dough and then throw whatever toppings you want on it, and it will be delicious. So I've got some homemade pizza dough here that I've just got thawed out. I let it rise, and I'm just kind of pressing it into my pan here. all the way to the edges and up the sides because we're making a deep dish pizza. Now, this recipe is from the Moliere, I think it's Home is Where the Eggs Are cookbook. But if I can find this online, I will leave it linked down below. But the cookbook is always linked in my Amazon Books link. If you want to get her cookbook, you can find it in my books link. Okay, so this looks pretty good. And I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to give my hands a rinse, and then we'll put all the ingredients in here. Alright, so I've got some garlic here that I've just got sliced up. And I'm just going to scatter this all over the bottom of this pizza here, or this pizza crust. And some mozzarella that I've just got shredded up. You can buy the pre-shredded if you don't want to shred it yourself. I love pizza in all of its forms, especially deep dish or Chicago style pizza. Absolutely delicious. And I've got some lemon zest here. I'm just going to sprinkle this all over. And I've also got some ricotta cheese. And I'm just going to kind of dollop this all over the mozzarella. I've got some broccoli here. Now, her recipe calls for broccolini. I could not find any broccolini, but I do have a broccoli, so I just cut it into small little pieces. And I'm just going to scatter this all over the top of the pizza. Now, I've got some chorizo here, but you can do any kind of sausage that you like. And I'm just going to dollop the top with some of this chorizo. It's going to add nice spiciness to the pizza. Her recipe does not call for chorizo, but I've had some in the freezer that I needed to use up, so it is going on the pizza. And whatever I have left over, if I have any left over, I will just cook it up, put it in a baggie, put it in the freezer, and I will use it for a meal one day this weekend. Now, one thing with pizza toppings is you gotta know when to stop, because I can add pizza toppings and just pile it high, and then it'll be nothing but toppings. So I'm gonna stop here. Now, this is going to go in the oven for about 20 minutes or so until the cheese is nice and melted and the meat is completely cooked through. So I will show you what it looks like when I take it out of the oven. All right, y'all, so this just come out of the oven. It is super duper hot and it smells absolutely delicious. My air conditioner's on, so if you hear that, I'm sorry. It's really hot in here. I've got some red pepper flakes here. Just gonna sprinkle over a few. And I've got some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Just going to sprinkle that over. And that is going to melt down and get delicious, and it's going to add tons and tons of flavor. All right, all I'm going to do now is transfer this to a cutting board, and then we'll slice this up and we'll have dinner. All right, you guys, so here's the pizza once I got it transferred over to the cutting board before I sliced into it. You guys, this pizza was the perfect balance of flavors. The chorizo was a nice spicy little kick to this pizza. As you know, we love spicy food. But I just served some marinara on the side, and this was so good, so filling. I highly, highly recommend you trying this recipe.
You can check out her book in my Shop My Books link in the description box. If I can find it online, I will leave it linked. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and I will see you guys in the next one.